Right, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this session today. It's entitled Uncovering the Value of the SAP Business Technology Platform, or BTP, as we'll be referring to it going forward. The objective of the session is to try and unlock a little bit of the power of the BTP platform. So, three core objectives: helping hopefully to position why a technology platform in itself is a crucial component for an organization's success. We'll be looking at what actually BTP is from the SAP standpoint. And then most importantly, when and how can you start to benefit from SAP BTP? It's really important for us to kind of position it for you guys to really start to get the power out of it. Okay. In regards to the actual session, we've got a very quick agenda, so I will do a little bit of an introduction for myself and Will, and then a little bit about G3G. Then we'll look at a little bit of feedback that I've managed to get from a survey that was done by the UK and Ireland SAP user group. So that's some quite interesting findings on that. Then we'll delve into SAP Business Technology Platform itself, have a little look and position about where it sits. Then I'm going to be handing over to Will, who's actually going to talk about the specific 5 pillars within BTP. And then it'll be back to me for a bit of a wrap up at the end. So who are we very quickly? So good morning, Nick Wilding. I'm one of the solution architects here at G3G. Will and myself are both part of the global advisory team, and we've got over 20 something years each in the SAP ecosystem, doing multiple different functions. So, you know, we live and breathe SAP, and we're very much trying to keep ourselves on the forefront of the technology and the platforms available to us. For those of you that aren't familiar with G3G, G3G is an SAP partner with a 24-year track record. We specialize in enterprise software advisory services, license provisions, audits, implementation and support. And we are an SAP partner center of expertise, PCOE accredited. G3G also trades under the group brand Group Elephant. The group operates under a hybrid business model and employs around about 3,500 people over 40 countries, and is a largely employee-owned conglomerate of boutique service firms and software companies. And we also have a non-profit organization, which is an ERP platform called Elephants, Rhinos and People, that is all about giving back to the local communities. Quick sample of some of our clients around the globe. So maybe some of you will be able to see your brand or your logos on there, but this is just a snapshot of the companies that we are engaged with, and then a little look on our global footprint. So you'll see there we've got great global presence, local offices, local consultancies across the world. So we're well placed for the international market as well as local brands in the UK. Okay, so that's a little bit about G3G. Hopefully that gives you some context. I now want to start positioning the session. And the first thing I wanted to do was to talk about ensuring that companies and organizations are considering being future ready and future fit. It's virtually impossible to predict what new technology and innovation is coming, let alone how it can be positively applied to your organization. The best most companies can strive for is to be future ready and to keep future fit. By being future ready, you're embracing the possibility that change will come and you are proactively doing what you can to be ready for it, whether that's via technology, processes, or just the company mindset. By keeping future fit, you are constantly reviewing and adapting your mindset and processes and systems to stay ready for any of the change that's coming. Okay, it's important to embrace technology and innovation. It's important not just to be ready for technology, but also have a plan to adopt it. In our experience, forward-thinking companies actively adopting new technologies are far more better placed to foster the culture of innovation. So when you join the session, we did very quickly ask you to do a poll for us. This is hopefully again just to position where we're looking to talk about today. So in regards to the first poll question around the how frequently you activate the enhancement packs, What we tend to find is the regular implementation for support and enhancement packs is good practice, but we found that many companies don't have the capacity to regularly activate any new enhancements or innovations being delivered as part of the EHPs. The regular cycle of applying the patches is more driven by the need to stay supported or compliant. This could mean that the organisation is not advancing as quickly as it could. Cloud methodology pushes for a more autonomous approach to upgrades, seeking to apply innovations when they're available. This still needs a certain level of proactivity to adopt the innovation, but as the delivery and the upgrade method requires less effort, the equivalent capacity could then be diverted to the adaptation of the processes for pushing that competitive advantage. I'm not surprised at all by the actual poll result. You can see there 60% of the results basically are saying they either keep themselves regularly patched but don't apply EHPs, or don't patch at all. So that just shows the complexity and the difficult structure that it is when you're running an on-premise and trying to keep on top of the latest enhancements. In regards to implementing artificial intelligence, AI is still quite new in the innovation space, and many organizations are still working hard to find those use cases where AI can make a positive impact. Whether it's letting AI monitor customer services emails, for example, for positive or negative comments, and then suggesting the correct course of actions for the customer service advisor, or potentially AI can suggest and implement price changes based on demand, inventory levels, or competitor pricing. The reality is AI is potentially only limited by the imagination of those implementing it. However, for the more mature systems, the technology stack and infrastructure that the application still runs on may not be optimal for implementing AI. This may become a blocker for the speed of innovation possible. So again, I'm not surprised by the results here that you guys have fed into. Okay, so I mentioned at the outset, I've got a couple of survey results here. So a survey was conducted by our colleagues here on the UK and Ireland SAP user group. They interviewed 123 key decision makers on their views about adopting S4 and SAP's cloud strategy. And I just wanted to call out a few of the findings which I think are relevant for today's topic. Okay, so I've purposely just put the results up here to start off with, but one thing that becomes apparent is the results show a general theme or a trend. Either they're high or they're low, but this really helps us interpret the responses that we get. So if I click through to the individual questions, so the first question that was asked, SAP has said that many of its latest innovations and capabilities will only be available in the cloud. Do you agree with this strategy? Again, not surprising that only 15% of the respondees agreed with the strategy. The other 85% either had no opinion or strongly disagreed. As I'm sure you can imagine, there was quite a high number that were disagreeing with that strategy. The next statement that came through, on-premise customers are increasingly becoming an afterthought when it comes to product and innovation from SAP. Similar train of thought. So again, 92% of respondents all agree with that statement, that we are worried that the on-premise world isn't getting the innovation and the structure and the investment going forward. The other thing that I find quite interesting is the last statement. I have a high level of understanding of SAP BTP and what it can enable for my organization. And that's only 15% of respondents. Okay, so if I actually pull those three items together, we've got a lot of uncertainty coming. We've got a bit of confusion or disagreement with the strategy, but actually we're not necessarily empowered enough to understand what some of the solutions are and how BTP can help do that. And hopefully by the end of this session, we'll start to unlock some of that. We're not going to have all the answers, but we definitely want to see if we can start teasing out some of those solutions and ways forward to alleviate some of the pressures and strains of the on-premise and the upgrade and migration path. A couple of other questions that I thought were quite interesting. For those who have already moved to S4, 79% have an on-premise or hosted deployments. That is a very high number. But when asked to what extent those people that have deployed used BTP for their integration, you can see there 56% didn't even touch BTP. 10% weren't even relevant. So we're looking at 2/3 didn't use BTP at all. And again, in our eyes, that's really missing the power of BTP and how it can unlock some of that innovation going forward. And then lastly, on the survey, for those considering moving to S4, at the time, 70% were planning to still move to an on-premise or hosted version. That number, I believe, will be slowly coming down as people see the power of the cloud products and out-of-the-box methodology. But again, it's quite a high number. But of those surveyed, 50% do recognise that they will need to be looking to rebuild extensions and customizations using BTP. So at least there's an awareness of where BTP sits. The question a lot of people have is, how do we do it and when? Okay, so that's a little bit of context, a little bit of background. And now I want to just delve very quickly into the BTP platform itself. So to start off with, why do we need a technology platform at all? So a robust technology platform is crucial for an organization's success, as it serves as the foundation for business applications, enabling efficient operations, growth, and adaptation to changing business needs. We all know that modern business depends heavily on technology, so having the right technology foundation does make a huge difference. According to Forrester, future fit organizations that have a flexible technology foundation and a business operating model that can change quickly grow nearly 3 times faster than their industry average. Research shows that organizations that are able to innovate faster with software are able to turn that into better business performance, and they score higher on all the key metrics that you care most about, such as customer satisfaction, brand perception, and talent management. So what is the SAP Business Technology Platform? Let's start by looking at where it is positioned within the overall portfolio. So you can see there the core ERP solution is placed very much at the center of the portfolio. The core solution often comes then with the industry-specific solutions that are embedded within. Outside of the core ERP are the line of business solutions, such as SuccessFactors for HCM, or Ariba for spend management, for example, as well as other applications for the wider ecosystem. Underpinning the whole landscape is BTP, which spans across the whole portfolio, regardless of which solutions are used, be it Ariba and ERP, or maybe SuccessFactors and something in the CX suite for customer relationship. It doesn't always necessarily have to have SAP as the core ERP solution either. But in my view, in our view, BTP is where the magic happens. It brings all the critical areas of technology that you need to accelerate innovation into a single unified environment, optimized for SAP applications. With more and more solutions being provided from the cloud, the term clean core is often being mentioned, and I'm sure you've heard this, which is pushing for any bespoke requirements or developments to take place outside of the core solutions, allowing them to stay clean and easier to maintain. BTP provides that environment to support the whole portfolio through developments, integrations, and more. BTP is split itself into 5 pillars, which we'll cover a bit more detail in the rest of this session. So just to wrap up my initial section, big question is when? When can you start looking at BTP? How do you start looking at your BTP strategy? Our view is start now. You don't need to wait. Many people are aligning BTP with their S4 journey. This is a viable solution if you're actively looking to migrate to S4 soon, as you'll almost certainly need BTP as part of it. However, for those that are still unsure of your S4 timeline, or indeed which version of S4 you may end up going, then starting your BTP journey before S4 could be a great entry point to the cloud mindset and embracing the innovations which are not yet available to you in ECC. BTP is a powerful platform for those only running SuccessFactors or the other line of business solutions. By implementing innovation in BTP going forward, you are pushing towards that future ready state, as BTP will be there to support future ERP versions and line of business solutions as they evolve. So just very quickly about the structure of the next bit of the session. We're going to use this format. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk through the 5 pillars within SAP's BTP, with the aim of helping to understand the historical ways that the solutions have been delivered for each of the pillars and aligning them to what is new and emerging in the technology available. For each pillar, we'll follow the same theme of referencing how technology has been done previously. That's the yesterday column on the left. Today's column is focused on what is available today and how you can start to adopt it. And then the tomorrow's column is helping identify the long-term possibilities and hopefully start to consider the overall strategy. We have put a couple of working examples or demos, with our goal being to help simplify some of the complexity of what can be quite a large and potentially daunting topic. So that's everything from me. I'm now going to hand over to Will, who's going to talk through the actual pillars themselves. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Nick. Let me just request control here.
Will.
Thanks. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I see we got into the three digits for attendees. So thank you very much for making the time to join the call. As Nick said, it's quite a lot that we've got to get through in the next 30 minutes, but hopefully it'll give some picture into some opportunities with BTP. Good. So BTP is essentially the foundation for that cloud mindset that we've all heard SAP talking a lot about. And that is a fundamental shift to move away from the thinking of on-premise to a cloud mindset, which will then lead to having more agility and the ability to continuously innovate. So the principle is that we have this cloud mindset that we are constantly focusing on as we go through these different pillars. And just to reiterate what Nick was saying about systematically just looking at each of the pillars in sequence and understanding what the opportunities are for each of them. And of course, it's a vast topic, so we'll be touching on some of the items and giving a brief overview of each of the full platforms as well. Good. So the first pillar that we're going to be looking at is building applications and innovating with application development. So how did we do things yesterday? Well, I'm sure you guys are mostly familiar with the topic of FDS's, functional design specifications, and technical design specifications that are drawn up by business process owners and technical experts to then use that documentation to ultimately do some sort of ABAP development on stack, which leads to a sort of an entanglement of these developments with the core the core functionality of the system that is the developer's software. I mean, let's say the vendor's software. And then, of course, there's the whole topic of the custom code management, where as time rolls on, code gets deprecated, and when it comes to then trying to upgrade the vendor's core software, when it's entangled with these developments, it can be quite challenging and involves a lot of testing and so forth. So that's how we did it yesterday. What are the opportunities for today then? Well, we will continue to code in ABAP, but we'll do that at arm's length to the core system. So within the SAP BTP environment, we'll have an ability to code in ABAP for those experienced ABAP developers and give them an additional coding capability in terms of a Java IDE that will also be available for developing, and that's for what we term the pro coders. Then something that's introduced with BTP then is the concept of no code, low code, where as SAP terms it, a citizen developer or a business user has the capability then to use this tool, SAP build tool called Build Apps, to literally drag and drop and create solutions without any coding experience. So that's something that with the deployment of a BTP environment, experienced developers can get on with what they're used to, but at arm's length to the core, and business users can get their hands on creating solutions with little development experience. Then on the more longer term, what can we do tomorrow? We'll have the citizen low-code, no-code developers working alongside pro-coders to create solutions within the BTP environment. There will be the ability to automate processes and workflows, develop mobile apps. And one of the other key areas of the development, application development pillar is the concept of what SAP terms the work zone. And as you'll notice here, you have things like you have a different component of SAP build. So in the build context, you have build applications and build work zone. So work zone is the new single user interface that is essentially like a website where the user can have a single entry point to multiple SAP and non-SAP applications from that work zone. It's like a business site, if you want to call it that. And the typical launch pads like the Fiori launchpad that you might have in an S/4HANA environment would then be something that could be accessed, or SuccessFactors for that matter, would all be accessible to the users in the work zone. So this is an overarching slide of the SAP tools and the naming conventions, SAP build apps, build process automation, and so forth. On the left, the low-code items, and on the right, the pro-code ABAP and Java environments, all in the cloud. So let's move into an example on the application development side. This is a G3G and EPU's labs development called Sign for It, which is a proof of delivery app. This architecture is using a set of icons and architecture drawing capability that one can find online in terms of the ability to produce these architectural diagrams. And you can see central to the BTP component is the build apps that was used to develop this app. And then there's use of the integration cloud connected to an S/4HANA system for access to the deliveries. So we're just going to take a look then at a few minutes of a video here that is the proof of delivery app on an iPhone. And so you'll see here that the user then can either, in terms of loading deliveries, enter it with a keypad. Alternatively, a delivery barcode can be scanned to then load the deliveries. This is an iPhone that is being used in this case, and when the deliveries are loaded, it's a case that once the delivery gets processed, the user then can modify once they drill down into a particular delivery, they can modify the quantities by the schedule line item on the delivery, and then also manage any kind of reasons for deviation from the proposed quantities from the original delivery. And if necessary, use the camera on the device to then capture images, multiple images, in fact, associated with that particular proof of delivery, then make use of the ability to sign, capture a signature, and then submit the proof of delivery. That results then in a green check for that particular delivery, and then the user can continue on in a similar fashion to either manually enter or scan barcodes to add additional deliveries, and then manage the quantity. And in this particular case, the quantity, there was a duplication, so the reason for the variance is given, and again, photos can be taken with the device camera and can be signed off and submitted. Good. So that's a quick example of a proof of delivery app that was built in SAP Build Apps. So we can move on to the next topic, which is then automation, optimizing and automating business processes. Good. So how did we do it yesterday? Well, we had the ability to have workflows and automation to a certain extent in our legacy applications, but it often meant that we needed specialist consultants or specialist developers to build these custom solutions and needed specialist skills, let's say. So the idea today then with BTP is to make use of SAP Build Process Automation, which is a very user-friendly drag and drop interface where business people can create automation solutions in a very simple fashion on the one hand, and another area that would be an area that to look into as in the today context is process visibility. Now, process visibility is essentially out-of-the-box dashboards in different lines of business that can be activated by a business user to give an operational view of business events. And that is also something that is done via the process automation toolset. In terms of a more longer-term approach, the idea would then be to look at robotic process automation, which is essentially the installation on a local machine. So on my laptop, I have a bot installed. I can create a project in business process automation, and essentially either in an attended or unattended mode can get this bot to do repetitive tasks for me on a client base. In addition to that, I think it's important to also recommend Signavio solutions. I do have a vested interest, not vested interest, but it's one of the areas that I find so exciting, and that is the ability to make use of what Signavio has to offer in terms of process insights, which are the onboard KPIs in the ERP system, and being able to utilize and automate the access to that information, as well as potentially the business events that drive a Signavio process intelligence. So let's have a look at a example of process automation. Well, before we get to that, just an overview then of the tool set under process automation. You'll notice there the process visibility that I was referring to, the process automation, and the access to the Signavio solutions for building process automation. So let's move on then to the build process automation example of a sales order approval. And I want to trigger a sales order approval process in this case. My trigger then, I have out-the-box options to trigger my process. In this case, I'm going to submit a form for my sales order approval process. I then can choose what I want to do next after I've completed my form. Well, I have also presented a number of different options. In this case, I want an approval form, so I select that. And so in this user interface for SAP Build Process Automation, I build my approval process with approval and rejection forms. And I then deploy this business process automation to then get to the next stage, where a link, a URL for my form is generated, which I then can apply to a launchpad to make it accessible to a business user, who would then essentially be able to access that form, complete it with the relevant information, either text, value, date, which are all standard drop-down ways of producing the form, then submit that form, which then will be received by the person who has to approve it in their inbox. and the pre-populated information about who the customer is and the various details are pre-populated, and giving the person, the approver, the ability to then acknowledge receipts and also send a message to the buyer and hit the approve button. So that's a very simple example of a very business person focused way of creating a process using business process automation in a very user-friendly UI. Good, so let's move on to connect and simplify. This is quite a vast topic, so we'll just look at how did we do it yesterday. Well, typically we would have had some sort of middleware in the form of process integration or process orchestration, perhaps, which involved a multi-tier landscape, SAP landscape, some hardware, dev queue and production, perhaps, some specialist integration consultants, PO consultants that manage these messages flowing to and fro. And then much like the custom code management, in terms of interface monitoring, making sure that there's ownership and responsibility at all those touch points through the messages flowing in and out is certainly, in my experience, one of the challenges of managing interfaces. So what are the opportunities with BTP today? So what there is the ability to then make use of SAP's Business Accelerator Hub. By accessing this, one has the ability to very quickly discover and understand opportunities, whether that be with using cloud integration, using open connectors, using SAP APIs in a very intuitive and user-friendly fashion in a browser-based user interface. And over the long term, would be using other tools that are available in the integration tool set to do a proper, on the longer term, assessment of the legacy integration to plan for a migration to the cloud, and then build on top of that an overarching cloud strategy for integration, using also a variety of different tools like the integration advisor, and using the methodology that SAP have developed for advising on integration. So if we have a look at the full suite, this is a very busy slide, I know. So please focus on the purple block there, where one can get into the SAP Business Accelerator Hub and start understanding and testing in a let's say a low impact environment on your current operations, what pre-built integrations are available, what APIs are there that are available to use. All the documentation and IP is provided by SAP in this Accelerator Hub. Then in terms of the integration suite, which is another cloud interface, a user interface, which we'll show a couple of examples of, is where one can then look into what the opportunities are for cloud integration, using the open connectors to connect to on-premise and third-party applications. And then, as I mentioned, the migration assessment and the SAP Integration Solution Advisory methodology are, let's say, the tomorrow longer-term opportunities to be taken. So looking as an example at one or two screenshots, screen grabs here of what the integration suite user interface looks like. There is this ability as coming in fresh with a cloud mindset to discover what is available in different scenarios. So in this particular case, I searched for SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud Edition 2402, what APIs and what is available in terms of artifacts that I could potentially use. Well, there's 739 of them, so it would need some further investigation. But the point is that there is a way to interrogate what is available in, sorry, I don't know what happened there. To interrogate what is available to make use of in the case of public cloud in this instance. And I just did another grab for version 2023, which is essentially the private cloud or on-premise version of S/4HANA. There's also 700 different APIs that could be looked at. And as I said, by drilling down into these various discover menu options like integrations, system types, and APIs, and so forth, all the relevant supporting documentation and guides are then available as well to then plan the use of the various options. Good. So let's move on to giving data purpose, which is the fourth pillar of data and analytics. How did we do things in the past? Well, we might have had a BW or BW for HANA system and used business objects, perhaps. We might have had SAP BPC for planning. And again, much like the other scenarios where we would have had some sort of 2-3 tier landscape that had to be maintained and patched and kept up to date. We might have been extracting data from our core systems into third-party tools. But what are the opportunities with BTP today? Well, one of the first things is to be able to establish a hybrid environment for SAP BW or BW for HANA by connecting it and making use of what you've already got in DataSphere. Now, you might ask, well, what is DataSphere? So DataSphere is the modeling, a cloud modeling tool, for want of a simple explanation. And that is where the modeling takes place. And then the presentation layer is SAP Analytics Cloud, which you may have been maybe more familiar with. And that would allow for presentation of analytics as well as doing planning. The advantage of DataSphere is that it has a multitude of abilities to connect to all sorts of SAP, non-SAP. It accepts flat files. It has access to public data sources and other SAP data markets. So it's very powerful from the point of view of quickly connecting to get data to be modeled. And then the SAP Analytics Cloud will allow for analytics and planning on top of the models. Then in the future state and potentially longer term, one would want to look at doing a full migration or move, let's call it, from BW to BW Bridge, which is a concept we'll touch on in a later slide, which is an element within DataSphere. And then from the planning perspective, there's a couple of options. One could move, which is again a complete re-implementation with reuse of what you've already developed in BPC into the Analytics Cloud planning environment. Or alternatively, the other two options are to, for example, use SAC from a user interface point of view to do live planning and analytics on your BPC base, or potentially also have a bi-directional integration where certain work is done in BPC and shares it with SAC, or work is done in SAC and it's shared with BPC. So you keep the two systems, persistence in SAC, and you keep the two systems in sync. So there's a number of options from the BPC point of view. So let's just have a look at a couple of slides on this topic. Additional slides here, just to point out that the kind of core of this pillar is DataSphere, which SAP terms as the data fabric, which combines the architecture side with the software to then allow for the full connectivity, management, and governance of data. So that's just a part of the tool set, which I think is central to this pillar. And then just to talk a little bit about the power of the use of the UI for both DataSphere and Analytics Cloud, where when they're both deployed, there's literally a toggle, the ability to toggle between the two in the same URL. So once one is in the data modeling activity in DataSphere, and I want to now look at creating a story to present my data, I can literally toggle to my Analytics Cloud to build my story, and then toggle back to DataSphere. So it's a very powerful combination set of tools. Some examples of what the visualizations and graphing capability is like in Analytics Cloud. These are just some screen grabs of examples of how one could present various dashboards in Analytics Cloud based on my FBU's colleagues' developments. So that's just a quick view of the kinds of visualizations one can do in SSC Analytics. And then just to close out this pillar of data and analytics, the hybrid that I mentioned, where I retain my BW or BW for HANA with an integration to DataSphere is the top row, where I can continue to make use of my BW or BW for HANA, but use DataSphere in addition, with the longer term view of doing a full move, where there are tools that supports the conversion from BW or BW for HANA to, as it says in that space area of DataSphere there, the BW bridge, which is essentially the BW concept within the space of DataSphere. That's just to give you the sort of hybrid and then the full-blown move view. Good. So then we come on to the last pillar, which is AI, and this is the new kid on the block, which the Generative AI Hub, I think, came out in January this year. So what did we do yesterday? Well, I guess software suppliers were kind of trusted to build some sort of intelligence into business process and analytics in a very bespoke way for their piece of software. What we aim to do today is to leverage AI in our own environments. And within the tool sets that SAP offers for AI, there's the ability to use, natural language processing and machine learning to find a way to use natural language for businesses to ask questions and get answers. There is the topic of retrieval augmented generation, or where the questions and answers are getting augmented by the use of business data and business context, which we'll come to in another slide. And then SAP has built in what they call Joule. It's like a co-pilot. You may have seen co-pilot in Edge these days. There's a mechanism to then ask questions on SAP's cloud products, which is native to all their cloud products. In terms of a longer term view of life, SAP are definitely going all out, embedding AI capabilities across all the pillars. And the idea would be then that once we've gone beyond the question and answer type AI capabilities, is to then start building, using the AI services from SAP to build and optimize processes and workflow. This is the sort of full ambit of the AI within BTP platform. And I think the most important thing is that there is the core foundation of AI with the Generative AI Hub, which I said came out in January, which is what is used then to leverage these large language models that are made available through the AI Hub. And then there's the AI Launchpad to support the operations of AI. The topic of the vector engine, I think, is just important to mention for the data scientists out there, where we'll come to in a later slide a little bit more about what the vector engine is. Also something very new, and that is the ability to essentially represent data in terms of numbers, whether it's a vector or an array, which then helps to improve the way that the system can respond to questions. So here's an example of the potential of generative AI, and it's based on what might be familiar to some of you in terms of ChatGPT, for an example, where we have foundational models made available in the SAP generative AI functionality and services that make use of OpenAI and ChatGPT large language models. But then there's the ability in the SAP toolset to then adapt it further with prompt engineering and embeddings, which is essentially prompting in a programmatic way to get to the right answer with this prompt engineering. And the embeddings is essentially the use of what I've referred to earlier around the vector engine, where essentially data is translated into numbers in either a vector or an array, which then is also used to guide the AI to get to the ability to answer questions and generate code and so forth. The last topic then in AI is around what I mentioned about retrieval augmented generation, where in the top right, you see the large language model, which, as I said, some of you may be familiar with, which then gets enhanced with the tools that SAP can offer around using the vector engine to take the questions and narrow them down via the vector embedding and taking business documents to then, in addition to the large language model, add those best matches and provide answers to questions. So it's about taking that plunge up to adopting SAP BTP. It is a, relatively speaking, low barrier to entry to really make your cloud mindset a reality, and it can be independent to what you're doing in other, let's say, larger projects like moving to S4. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Will. Right, so quick apologies. So while Will was doing that, he had control of my screen, which means I couldn't then look at the chat window. So what we will do, Will, can you have a quick look through the chat? Because I think there's a few questions that have pinged up. I'm going to do a quick bit of the wrap up, and then I think we should have a couple of minutes to be able to see if we can answer any of the questions now. And if we can't answer them now, we'll come back to you. If we run out of time, we'll come back and respond individually. So apologies for that technical hiccup, but I could see questions coming through, but I couldn't actually read them. Right, so as hopefully you've seen, Will's gone through the 5 pillars. It's a big topic. It's impossible to try and get all of the information across, but hopefully it's a touch point into it. I just wanted to reflect very quickly on some of the key messages. Looking to see, are you future ready or future fit? Getting your system, your mindset, your processes ready for adopting innovation going forward. How will you support ongoing innovation? The next time you need to implement a change or enhancement, don't just do it how you've always done it. Consider whether there's a more robust or future ready approach to any innovation or any enhancement you're currently doing. Consider the 5 pillars within BTP. How's your organization developing and innovating in those areas? And again, can BTP unlock some of the power of that? And how is your organization adopting AI? We've mentioned about talking to Joule or other options there for AI. So really is about trying to free up that mindset a little bit from the restrictions of manual processes to see how AI can make a difference to you. And for all intents and purposes, BTP is ready now, regardless of where you are on your S4 journey. If you're still on ECC, it will plug in and interact, and it gives you that future ready state for your ongoing deployments before you get to your S4 pathway. Just to close out the slide deck, and as I say, we should have a couple of minutes at the end. There's some collateral. There's lots of collateral online, and some of these QR codes here are quite useful for self-empowerment, being able to have a look and see what tools SAP has available to you. For some of them, you may need your S number. So this is your number that SAP distribute to you as a development partner or a customer. So we recommend having a look through these, the ones that feel relevant to you. We're more than happy to help get involved. The other thing that we'd obviously really appreciate, is to contact us, get involved, ask us further questions. As I say, we'll all work through the questions we've already got. I think one of the questions I saw ping up was regarding the licensing. There are a number of versions of the subscription options. It isn't always ingrained in your subscription agreement with SAP. So I would encourage you to explore those angles as well. I can't speak for every single deal, so therefore it's very much on a case by case, but we're more than equipped to be able to discuss the subscription options, whether that's a pay-as-you-go or an enterprise subscription or those kind of methodologies as well. Okay. And that brings me to a close of our slide deck. So there is a slide deck there. There's a QR code there. So for anyone that would like to have further conversations with either Will or myself or both of us, or anyone here at G3G, we'd recommend scanning that code and putting in a request to have a follow-up.